Inverell Showgrounds, just after dawn, and the remnants of the 12th 24th Australian Light Horse Regiment saddles up. It saw gallant service in the First World War, most notably the charge of Beersheba in Palestine in the Middle East. This time, their mission is to ride the 35 kilometres north of Inverell to Paradise Station and set up base camp for a week of sorties. In a district desperate for rain, no one was complaining about the intermittent showers that were delaying the departure, and they were all determined that the ride would go ahead.
All happens, yes. We'll take off on time and we'll put up with it through the day. I think it'll turn out all right later.
The regiment was disbanded in 1942, and Snow Coggan readily admits he's glad he didn't see active service.
Now, we love horses and we had a really good time with them, but I wouldn't like to have them in action.
They aren't all veterans of the regiment. Youngsters are invited along to help keep alive the spirit of the light horse.
Being young, you weren't around to see what had happened, but it's good that these blokes keep the tradition going so we understand what went on.
That's right.
For 4 years now it's been happening, this commemorative ride. They set a cracking pace and there's no waiting for the stragglers. The regiment will be back by the weekend, in time to lead the parade of the annual Inverell Sapphire Festival. Then it will be back to Civvy Street for another 12 months before it all happens again.
Mine workers at the Moonee Colliery and the Wallara Coal Preparation Plant today went the way of 140 others let go from the Wallara pit just 2 weeks ago because of low coal prices. The total workforce has been more than halved. The United Mine Workers Federation, after attempting to compromise with Coal and Allied, took the matter to the local coal authority. The Federation was prepared for some layoffs but insisted on observing seniority rights for the miners. That is, seeing that the last on were the first to go. The Coal Authority found in favour of the union, but Coal and Allied saw things differently.
We've been forced into the situation with the seniority being pooled between the two operations. We intended to keep them very much as they were.
What the company have now done is reacted to that particular decision that didn't suit them, and now they've gone ahead and taken this, we believe, very irresponsible attitude to their workforce.
I don't really view it as a retaliation. We made it clear from the outset that we weren't in a position financially to move the people across from Wallara to Moonee.
Coal and Allied argues that it would have cost too much to retain senior miners and change work practices at the Moonee Colliery. The company will concentrate on clearing a 750,000 tonne stockpile on the site. Standing up for their seniority rights has cost miners dearly.
The long-term ramifications of a concession on the seniority would have been far more reaching, not only to the people that will be forced out of work in this particular situation, but to the industry as a whole.
Can the workforce expect any more bombshells within the next couple of weeks?
Well, I guess, it's very difficult to see how some of these things pan out, but certainly there's no intention at this stage beyond what's happened already.
For cyclists, the longest day in the saddle, 187 gruelling kilometres heading south from the Great Lakes. It became a war of attrition as the road took its toll on the bikes and the heat took its toll on tempers. Riders took relief any way they could. For Frenchman Dominique Mollard, there was no time even for a wee break. Australian riders were never far from the action. Billy Joe Shearsby breaking away early to win both King of the Mountain climbs over the tortuous Bulladila Ranges. Shearsby went out alone for 88 kilometres and at one stage led by over 4 minutes but fell back as fatigue set in. Two other Aussies, Peter Barnett and Adrian Nolan, took it up to the international field, but both punctured 20 kilometres from the finish. Another group took over, Poland's Christian Zadel winning a hectic sprint to the Nelson Bay finish line. English rider Matthew Illingworth was in the leading pack. His time was enough to give him the leader's jersey, but only after a countback with Sylvian Bole.
The scattered remains of the cruiser and the massive swell signalled tragedy, but miraculously the 2 people on board survived, sending out a mayday as the boat was lashed by huge waves and managing to untie the life raft before the vessel went down. Phil McDonald and his partner Cheryl Knight were taking the 16-metre Marist from Lake Macquarie to Nelson Bay when disaster struck at around 1 p.m.
Copped a big one over the back, yeah. A couple of big ones over the back, yeah, and just took it in the bulkheads and went straight down.
The pair braved the conditions for 30 minutes, waiting for the police launch to arrive as the swell pushed them towards the rocks at Boat Harbour and stretching the rescue craft to its limit.
Yeah, well, they're useless, those things. They are. All they are is buoyancy. They're not, you know, we had no oars or rollicks or anything else.
With a rescue helicopter on standby, the pair were dragged to safety and taken to Nelson Bay, where they were treated by medical staff. Pet cat Cretin was also rescued, owner Cheryl holding the cat in her mouth as she climbed into the life raft. Virtually unscathed after the ordeal, Mr McDonald admitted he should have taken notice of the warnings.
It was forecast. It was just an error of my judgment. It came in much worse than what I expected.
Really? Yeah. Matthew White, NBN News.
The white-tailed spider is one of the 10 most dangerous spiders in Australia. It's approximately 1 centimetre long, has a white spot on its tail and is found throughout Australia, in bush, under foliage and also in houses, usually on the walls. Such was the case for Mrs Jan McLaren as she went to make her 3-year-old daughter's bed today.
I just came in and Claire has a teddy there that she likes to have against the curtain to block out the moon and everything. As I moved the teddy back there, it was just crawling down across there, so I just trapped it underneath the quilt like that and then went and got a jar.
According to Newcastle University lecturer Dr Brian Conroy, the spider isn't aggressive.
I think when it does cause problems, it's when it's by accident, really. I don't think the spider's going to go out of its way to affect you or me. It's really if we brush up against it.
Because the whitetail is so small, people often don't notice it or feel anything when bitten. Not everyone reacts to its venom, but for those who do, the effects can be extremely severe. The venom can cause ulceration of the skin, in some cases doing irreversible damage, in others requiring a skin graft. Gangrene can also occur. There is no known antidote as yet. Authorities recommend anyone who suspects they've been bitten by a white-tailed spider to consult a doctor immediately.
The old-time miners of the lower Hunter coalfields dreaded the onset of open-cut mining, huge blasts undermining their livelihoods. They felt so strongly that the Cessnock Council implemented a ban on open cuts. Last night, and 30 years on, the council repealed the regulation, clearing the way for the Newcastle Wallsend Coal Company to blast its old Pelton colliery. Pillars of coal left to hold up the roofs of underground tunnels, and some of the richest seams in the country will be reopened to retrieve what the miners used to call Pelton pearls. 12 hectares of bushland at Pelton will be gouged out. It could take 18 people about 18 months to extract 170,000 tonnes of coal from the open cut, and that's not even enough to fill up one bulk carrier out of Newcastle. But when blended with lower quality coal from the neighbouring Ellalong mine, that adds to the export value.
A number of the companies are talking about that possibility now, and this is a very small scale proposal with a short lifespan. Interesting to see what develops from that.
Weisman took a stranglehold on the race and can thank his team captain and defending champion Thomas Lysay for his position. Lysay was part of a four-man break from the 16-lap Tukely criterium, which included Weisman, Aussie Hank Vogels and Sprint King Jonas Carney of the US. 16 riders caught the breakaway just before Bumble Hill in the Yarramalong Valley west of Wyong, a long hard climb that sapped the energy of many. Alexander Nadabenko first over the top, with brilliant hill climber David Perry just a shade away next. Lysay had doubled as chairlift as he dropped back to help the struggling Weisman over Bumble Hill, and working together quickly rejoined the group once over the top. And once again a group took the bit between the teeth and tore away. This time there were 7 who broke from the pack. All worked hard to press their advantage, and by the finish line had a 5-minute 2-second lead over the next group of riders. Lysay went for a break a kilometre from home to win clearly from Nadabenko, with Perry third and Weisman fourth. Weisman now leads by 1 minute 11 seconds from Sylvain Bollet of France. Poland's Thomas Brosnay is third and Perry fourth. Lights, action, and our cameras were there to catch the first of a series of evening summer cricket matches. 12 teams from Newcastle and the coalfields have been split into 4 divisions and will contest 16 matches, with the final set down for the 25th of February. In miserable conditions, some were left in the dark as they waited for the action, while a few sought other means of warming up. Western Workers batted first, compiling 147 for the loss of 9 wickets. In reply, Newcastle City lost only 4 wickets for 150 and a well-earned victory. While the cricketers were trying to warm up, members of the Newcastle One Zone Karate Club were in full cry for their final hit-out before Sunday's Kashiki-controlled contact state titles at the basketball stadium.
Front kick, middle punch, Mawashi. Right? Alternate, high grade first, lower grade second.
More than 250 competitors will vie for state honours, with places in the team for the national championships also on the line. One thing is certain, however, don't tangle with this young lady. And Lake Macquarie's top sports people will be recognised tomorrow night at the Lake Sports Star of the Year Awards. Leading contenders for the trophy will be rugby league giants Paul Harrigan and Mark Sargent, sailors Chris Nicholson and Gary Brunninges, and Olympians Catherine Kwok, Simon McKillop Davies and Lisa Norton.
Considered state-of-the-art when it hit the rails 4 years ago, the Tangara has been showing cracks of late. Hairline fractures have been found on a wheel assembly component called a bogie on 70 Tangara carriages. But what's causing the crack? Not even Ganinan, the company that has the $500 million contract to build 450 Tangaras for the SRA, knows the answer yet.
That is a study we're currently doing with the SRA, with the Japanese designer of the bogie and ourselves. And it'll take us some weeks to identify that.
Despite concerns that the cracked bogies may lead to derailment, Mr Fitzgerald says constant monitoring should alleviate those fears.
That satisfies both the SRA and ourselves that there is no risk to a major accident occurring in service.
This is the second time that faults have been found in the Tangara in less than a month. In September, 11 carriages were recalled after cracks were discovered following a derailment in Sydney. But Ganinan is confident these incidents won't adversely affect the company's chances of winning future contracts.
I believe that the response of our company, having identified the problem and taking the corrective actions we have, and the committal to fixing it, is one that is an expectation of a supplier in the rolling stock industry and a responsible supplier in the rolling stock industry.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It seems the Department of Corrective Services is determined to go ahead with a plan to turn the Wallsend Public Works Depot into a weekend detention centre for 160 offenders. Residents had the word of Justice Minister Terry Griffiths that if the community didn't want a detention centre, it wouldn't be forced on them. A reshuffle in the ministry means that Terry Griffiths is no longer responsible for the matter. They were also assured that if a detention centre was established, those serving would be in for minor matters, such as traffic offences and defaulting on fines. But Corrective Services records suggest a different picture.
They're a lot worse than we were initially led to believe, particularly in the sexual assault areas and the drug-related areas.
Residents have been taken on a tour of other periodic detention centres in a bid to alleviate their concerns, but they're not convinced.
We've been through and looked at the sort of people that are in there currently, and we just don't believe they're suitable near a school.
1,500 signatures have been collected on a petition against the detention centre, but it seems the Newcastle City Council may have the final say when it deals with the matter in about 3 weeks' time.
There's, I think, a lot of pressure to get it up and running. We've been told that Tomago's in a rundown condition and they want to close that as soon as possible. And from what we can gather, they're very keen to get it off the ground as soon as possible.
Flames and smoke pouring from the wreck of this overturned truck on the Pacific Highway near Murwillumbah seemed to spell the worst to emergency services. Yet the driver, 38-year-old Jeffrey Passman from Queensland, escaped unscathed, which police say was miraculous. But once the driver's condition was assured, officers had another worry: the truck's volatile load of aerosol cans and drums of solvent.
They go off like bombs, those drums, when they go off. It was very scary early in the piece.
Battling toxic fumes and fearful of an explosion, officers sprayed foam onto the load. Scrub fires that had broken out on either side of the burning truck also had to be fought. The crash forced traffic to be diverted along an alternative coast road. In Scone, in the Hunter Valley, another lucky escape for a truck driver. About 3:10 this morning, the 36-year-old driver from Wagga Wagga failed to take a bend just before the township on the New England Highway, and the tanker loaded with vegetable oil toppled over. The rig skidded across the road and into a ditch. While the tanker came to a halt, the prime mover kept sliding, crashing into the amenities block of a public swimming pool. The truckie sustained only minor injuries. Further north along the New England Highway at Murrurundi, tragedy was the outcome when a four-wheel drive ute carrying 2 people left the road and smashed into a tree just after 6 this morning. The car caught alight immediately. Passing motorists dashed to the scene and managed to pull out the 26-year-old passenger, but the car was engulfed in flames before the driver, 28-year-old Daniel John Warden from St Mary's in Sydney, could be saved. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It has only taken one meeting to establish that veteran Chris Watson and international rider Tony Primer are going to be the leading lights in Australian solo racing this season. That's if the racing a fortnight ago is any indication.
It's always good to race with Chris. He's a good bloke, you know, and all's fair on the track, really. You know, we know where we stand with each other, and we just go for it, yeah.
And that battle is about to set the Motordrome alight tomorrow night with a winner-take-all three-race head-to-head clash. From Raymond Torres, Primer has spent the last 4 years in England, and with the knowledge gained and a new engine, he's going to be hard to beat.
Usually only had me good engines in England, and I've sort of come home and just had to ride my older model engines, and I've been caught out a bit that way, which on a big track you've got to have a fast engine, and now I've got one, I think I'm on the pace.
Supporting the two-man war will be the speed cars making their first appearance of the season, Formula 500s and an interstate clash in sidecars. "172 surfers from all over New South Wales have converged on Dixon Park this weekend for the Newcastle Matara Surf Classic, and with the storm swell still around, it had some competitors ducking for cover. The contest is one of the prized events on the circuit, and when you go back through the list of winners, it's easy to see why it's so popular. Robbie Wood in '63, Nat Young twice in the '60s, Peter Townend kicked off the '70s with a win, the legend Mark Richards, Mark Warren, Damien Hardman, the late Mark Sainsbury, the list goes on. And this year, surfers like world amateur champion Chad Edzer will be trying to add their name to that impressive list of previous champions. Today, 29 heats were scheduled to complete rounds 1 and most of round 2. Tomorrow, round 2 will be concluded, along with 3 and 4, the kneeboard final, and the semis and final of the main event. From water to dust, and the New South Wales Junior Ironman motocross titles at Awabba. 180 riders ranging in age from under 7 peewees to under 15s raced over 5 heats of 5 laps, combining both the motocross track today and the short course circuit tomorrow. Competitions such as these gives younger riders an appreciation of motorsport, with the safety aspect of paramount importance. Horsepower ranges from 50 cc's right through to 125cc capacity, and these youngsters know how to handle these two-wheeled mean machines. "83 teams from as far away as Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane and points northward, as well as all parts of New South Wales, are dribbling, shooting, dunking, blocking and stealing their way through a weekend of social basketball in the 25th Grafton Carnival. It has become that popular that it is generally regarded as the biggest single carnival in the state, and divisions from under 22s to over 40s try mixing serious basketball with some pretty serious party going. Many National League players are taking a break from the rigours of the NBL to let their hair down, while still keeping their eyes in, honing their skills for next year. For the first time this year, a 3-on-3 competition will complement the traditional 5-man format.
Opened back in 1867, South Grafton Primary School has seen many changes. Beginning with only a single classroom and a handful of students, the school moved sites twice and became a public school. It now boasts a population of more than 600. Today's festivities saw the Minister for Education, Virginia Chadwick, open the school's new communal hall that will carry the growing school into the 90s. A replica of the school's original bell was rung by an ex-student in the crowded quadrangle. Then it was Mrs Chadwick's turn to leave her mark on the school school with the planting of a tree. Celebrations continued well into the afternoon, with present students putting on a musical display. It was almost a case of the morning after the night before, as Coffs Harbour residents and members of local service groups gathered for barbecued bacon and eggs. Topic of conversation was undoubtedly the newly formed Working Party and the role local service groups will play in the planned refurbishment of Coffs Creek. Stretching from the beach to the Coffs Harbour City Centre, work is about to commence on the $2.5 million upgrade of the creek that will include the implementation of a series of cycleways, boardwalks and paths, making the waterway more accessible to the public. It wasn't long before the group hit the water in runabouts to view what will be firsthand. With the exercise a costly one for Coffs Harbour Council and the Department of Public Works, various service groups are being called on to contribute as much as they can to the development.
They gathered in a balloon-festooned room to pay tribute to the lake's best. Resplendent in evening wear, NBN's own sports guru Mike Rabitt said it was the best lineup of champions he's seen in the event's 8-year history. Vying for the main title, 10 men and women champions in their respective sports. Sam Lagutsa, current New South Wales Bowler of the Year. Barcelona Olympic swimmer Simon McKillop-Davies. The Newcastle Knights front row pairing of Mark Sargent and the Chief Paul Harrigan. But out of the blue, sailor Chris Nicholson. He steered his boat Pablos to state, Australian and world titles. On his way, he notched up the highest point score ever achieved in world competition. Gymnast Elizabeth Heslop took out the young sportsperson title. She's the current world champion. She's also tumbled her way to a swag of state titles. Another popular choice, disabled swimmer Joseph Walker. Joseph was honoured with a $1,000 sports scholarship.
A 21-year-old Martinsville woman died in an early morning smash near Freeman's Waterhole west of Newcastle. Louise Marie Wood was the passenger in a small sedan that failed to take a slight bend in Palmers Creek Road. The Police Accident Investigation Unit says the westbound vehicle skidded on gravel before crashing through warning signs and guideposts before it slammed into a tree. The male driver, the woman's brother, Desmond Wood, suffered a fractured leg, spinal injuries and deep facial lacerations. He managed to free himself from the wreck and alerted a passing motorist about 2 hours after the crash. In the northwest, a 21-year-old Moree man is dead after the car in which he was a passenger lost control on the Coolatai Road north of Warialda and rolled several times. The 18-year-old driver suffered a broken arm while another passenger was transferred to Tamworth Base Hospital with a suspected spinal injury.
$3,000 worth of trophies and prizes were up for grabs at the 5th annual Sawtell Classic, which attracted potential professionals aged between 12 and 21. With the number of players this year at its highest, 270 youngsters took to the greens of the Sawtell Golf Club, all eager to come out on top. Notable locals to impress the field, which stretched from Bundaberg to Werris Creek and south to Sydney, included State Rep Darren Train and budding talent Andrew Mitchell. Current New South Wales under-21 champion Donna Southam from Tamworth made the trip to the coast for the tournament and with some classy shots became the favourite to take out the girls' title.
It's recognised as Australia's largest regional children's festival, and now in its 11th year it drew the biggest crowd yet. By midday, about 15,000 had flocked to the park, and there were more on the way for an afternoon of free entertainment, displays and prize giveaways. Children's Week attempts to raise awareness about the rights and needs of the young and to help them realise their potential. Events are coordinated by the New South Wales Children's Committee and coincide with international celebrations. It cost $17,000 to stage the day, but admission was free. The emphasis was on having a cheap family day out, with many opting for the picnic baskets. Fire Brigade, Army Reserve and SES personnel manned the displays, while a collection of farm animals enthralled the youngsters. But it was Super Hubert the magician who kept them spellbound. He was one of the acts on a packed program on stage.
The developer of the resort, Gordon Pacific, has been plagued with problems. First, the long haul to get council approval for the development, and then the difficulty of attracting offshore investment in the project. A number of development consents from Lake Macquarie Council have lapsed, leaving nearby residents and council doubting the development would ever get off the ground. But it appears it has. Council has confirmed work on the Oceanside Golf Course has begun. It's not known exactly what work is being undertaken or how long it will take. Gordon Pacific has refused to speak to us today and instead say they'll make a public comment within a few weeks. In fact, Gordon Pacific was trying very hard to keep the work a secret. The development consent for the golf course expired today, but with work now underway, the development application has been protected. As well as 2 golf courses, the $800 million development consists of clubhouses, a 5-star cliff face hotel, villa units and a retail centre. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The burnt remains of this house are what the street kids of Raymond Terrace call home. They'll set up wherever they can to take shelter from a problem youth workers say is being ignored.
The kids don't wish to go back to their homes, so they have nothing else to do but sort of go underground. They're homeless, and the community often close their eyes to it. No, it doesn't happen in our area.
Up to 25 kids are on the street in Raymond Terrace. Today, only a handful wanted to talk. The rest were either too afraid or still asleep, but the message was clear.
How they expect us to get off the streets if no one will give us a house, you know? Solve a lot of problems that way.
Complaining of being bored, the kids do anything to keep occupied. Alcohol is their main outlet. With Port Stephens Shire Council holding a public meeting to address the issue next month, the campaign has begun for a hostel to be provided in the area.
Yeah, a bed, be warm, have something to eat, clean us up, you know. Just get out of the cold sometimes, but yeah, we need a house.
But the street kids say there has to be a change of attitude before the problem's solved.
They see us as juveniles, we see us as normal kids, but we just don't have a home to go to.
Matthew White, NBN News.
Dean Wall plays first grade for Sydney's Bankstown Club, and between weekend matches he's touring regional New South Wales, promoting the sport for the State's Cricket Association and recruiting new players along the way. Dean is joined by development officers and a couple of English cricketers making the most of their off-season. The squad will visit Dungog, Aberdeen, Scone and Muswellbrook this week.
Feet nicely evenly spread, back shoulder width apart. It's 3 movements.
Jason Ratcliffe plays with the Warwickshire County Cricket Club, and along with David Townsend is making it a year-round innings with Sydney clubs this summer. The pair are seeing the Aussie countryside while touring with the coaching clinic. There wasn't a six-stitcher to be seen at Cessnock High, where the students were put through their paces with tennis rackets and balls.
They're a bit more difficult to catch than the cricket balls, so they're good practice for the hand-eye coordination. The tennis rackets just hitting a few catches as well, so mix it up a bit of variation.
And what of this other War Boys' aspirations on the pitch?
It's hard to get into the New South Wales side at the moment. There's a lot of good young players around. I just got to take it one step at a time, I think.